Hey guys, Caleb Giddings for Taurus USA, and I want to talk for a little bit about the case for double action. What do I mean when I say the case for double action? Well, in front of me we have two of my personal guns, both Taurus double action revolvers. One is the new 692 executive grade that I've added these lovely VZ grips to that allow me to get a little bit better grip on the gun for rapid double action firing. And the other one is my personal Raging Hunter in 44 Magnum. I took this gun to Africa, did some hunting with it. Everything I shot in double action mode. I am a huge proponent of shooting these guns double action as opposed to single action. There's a number of reasons for that. But first, let's talk about what is double action, what is single action. How did they get these names? Well, in a double action revolver, the reason why it's called double action is because pulling the trigger does two things. It cocks the hammer and releases the sear. Double action. In single action, I've manually cocked the hammer, so pressing the trigger is now only releasing the sear. If you really wanted to be pedantic, which this is the internet, lots of people want to be pedantic, you should actually probably call double action triple action, because it's not just cocking the hammer and releasing the sear, it's also advancing the cylinder. But that's neither here nor there. It's double action because it's focused on the interaction of the trigger and the hammer and sear. So, but why would you want to shoot a gun like this double action? It seems counterintuitive because we can all agree that this trigger pull is longer and heavier than that trigger pull. In fact, I can tell you mathematically, because I know the trigger pull weights in this gun. This double action is 8 pounds. This single action is 3 pounds. You would think that 5-pound difference would make a huge difference. And you would be right if you were talking about someone who hadn't really spent the time to master the double action trigger. Because I'll say this, if your only interest in revolver shooting is to just take them out to the range and plink and have a good time and just, turn money into noise and smoke and do fun revolver things, you don't need to master the double action trigger. The single action trigger will allow you to do all of that, and you'll never have to deal with the difficulty of an 8-pound or a 10-pound trigger because you're just here to have fun. I'm just going to load the gun up, put 6 rounds or 7 or 8, cock that hammer back, and you get a really pleasant shooting experience from shooting these guns in single action mode. I 100% agree with that. Single action triggers on revolvers are lovely things. This 692 executive grade trigger is 2 pounds maybe? Who doesn't want to shoot light recoiling 38 special rounds out of a gun with a 2-pound trigger? Everybody does, because it is really nice. You could stand out here and just click, pull that hammer back, click, pull that hammer back, click. It's a really pleasant way to shoot the gun. I won't argue with that. I really won't. But I don't think it's the best way to shoot the gun. And I don't think it's the best way to shoot the gun for a number of reasons. One of the things that we have discovered from years of running these guns, and I've discovered from a lifetime of shooting these guns, is that there's no inherent accuracy advantage to shooting the gun in single action mode. People will say, oh, I shoot more accurately in single action, and that's true that they do. The reason they shoot more accurately in single action is because they haven't mastered the double action trigger. If you watch the front sight of this gun while I roll through it in double action mode, the front sight doesn't move any more in double action than it does when I press the trigger in single action mode. That's because I've spent the time and energy to really master double action, and it has made me better at shooting this gun than I would be if all I'd ever done was pull the hammer back. But again, we get back to why. Why even bother to master that double action? Well, for defensive revolver shooting, if you carry one of these guns, something like the 692 executive grade or a 605 or an 856, and you carry it to shoot it defensively, I assure you that when you rip this gun out of the holster at 2 in the morning because somebody jumped out in front of your house and you start pressing the trigger, you're not going to rip it out of the holster and pull it back and shoot it single action. You're going to get that gun up and you're going to get on target and you're just going to start yanking that trigger. And if you haven't mastered that double action trigger pull, that bullet might not go where you want it to. So that's one reason to do it. If you're going to shoot these guns defensively, you need to spend time dry firing. You need to spend time really getting this double action trigger pull down to a science. If you're going to shoot the guns competitively, you need to master the double action trigger pull. The last great bastion of precision revolver shooting is PPC, police pistol combat shooting. They shoot revolvers back to 50 yards in this game. Nobody shoots them single action. The guys at Bianchi Cup, myself included, who shoot revolvers, we don't shoot them single action at Bianchi Cup. Nobody in USPSA or IDPA or Steel Challenge revolver competition shoots the gun in single action. And why do you think that is? Well, it's because this is faster. I can demonstrate how much faster this is. If you have a stopwatch, go ahead, and the first time I press this trigger, start your stopwatch. All right, everybody ready? You got your watches out, you got your smartphones out. Here we go. I'm going to press this trigger 7 times. The first click, start your stopwatch. I don't know what that was. It's probably around 1.5 to 2 seconds. Now I'm going to do the same thing, pulling the hammer back. You didn't even need a stopwatch. If you can't tell which one is faster than the other one, maybe you need to see an eye doctor. But shooting the gun in double action is always going to be faster than shooting the gun in single action. And in the competition shooting sports, faster is better. But what about the argument of accuracy, Caleb? I'm more accurate in single action. Well, no, you're not. You may be more accurate because you haven't mastered the double action trigger pull, but that's because you've never really thought about how to run the gun in double action. I'm hoping that everyone who's watching this knows how to ride a bike, otherwise this analogy is about to fall apart. But when you think about a double action trigger, think about riding a bicycle. When you get on a bicycle to pedal, you can pedal fast, you can pedal slow. It depends on whether you're going uphill or downhill. You can even coast, although that's not really applicable to this. But pedaling fast or pedaling slow, what you never do is stomp down on one pedal and then stomp down on the other pedal. It's a continuous rate. Whether I'm dragging myself up a hill in a high gear, just trying to get there with slow, consistent pedal strokes, or I'm flying on a flat patch, just going as fast as I can, pedaling my little legs off, it's always a consistent motion. It's never stomp, stomp. So when you're shooting a double action revolver, what happens to people is they will think of it as a stomp, stomp. They'll start and they'll stop and they'll start and they'll stop, and it'll make shooting the gun accurately more difficult, especially when you get up to heavy guns, hunting guns like the Raging Hunter. If I were to shoot this gun double action like this, ooh, there's a target. Okay, I'm going to start my trigger press. Ooh, no, I'm going to stop it. Hang on, let me start it again. Ooh, let me stop. Wait, hang on. And then the gun goes off. There's a lot of fiddling around that made that trigger press worse. How it should work in the real world and how you should practice it is like this. Let's say that I was using this gun and I needed to shoot, I don't know, not a hypothetical. Let's say I was using this gun, the Taurus Raging Hunter in 44 Magnum, and I needed to shoot a wildebeest at 66 yards. Well, I would park this gun on my shooting sticks, I'd place the dot where I wanted it to go, and then I would initiate my trigger press. And so long as the animal didn't move, I'm not going to stop my trigger press. And I can tell you, here's what my trigger press looked like. At no point once I started the press did I stop. I just rolled with continuous even pressure through the trigger until the gun goes off. It's stable, it stayed on target, and it dropped that wildebeest with a single shot. Now, let's say I had a different scenario and I was, trying to snap shoot a jackal out the side of a truck at like 30 yards. The gun's going to swing around. I know I don't have nearly as much time to set that shot up, so I'm just going to rip through that trigger press. Gun did its job, the bullet did its job. I have the same trigger press regardless of what I'm trying to do. The only thing that changes is the rate of the press. Slow and smooth DA press for a precise shot. quick, fast DA press for a shot where less precision but more speed is required. And that's the big advantage to this. Once you master the double action trigger, you'll realize there's no degradation in accuracy. And all you've done now is given yourself the ability to make more complex shots even faster because you're not wasting time and brain cycles pulling the hammer back on the gun. All you're doing is putting the sights on target and pressing the trigger. I think the last reason and the last really great argument for learning to master these guns in double action, and something I can speak to from personal experience, is that if you can shoot a double action revolver well, you can shoot anything well. It completely recalibrates your concept of what a good trigger is. People who have spent their entire careers shooting light striker fired triggers or 1911 style triggers have this idea of what a good trigger is. If you shoot a double action revolver and you get to the point where you can shoot it well, every trigger feels like a good trigger unless it's a truly appalling monstrosity. But this is a great trigger. It doesn't stack, it doesn't creep, and it rolls nicely through the break. Fantastic. This is an even better trigger. It's really good. And so then if you come and you put a Taurus GX4 in my hands or a G3, I'm going, oh wow, this trigger's really easy to shoot because it's even shorter and even lighter. And because I've already mastered the hardest version of the trigger out there, you give me other stuff. And it just sort of turns into easy mode. So I firmly believe that if you are going to use a double action revolver for anything other than just plinking on the range, you need to master that double action trigger pull. If it's going to be a hunting gun, if it's going to be a self-defense gun or a competition gun, it's imperative that you spend some time really getting familiar with that DA trigger pull, how to manage it, how to run through it, what the difference between a slow, precise rolling press is and a super fast press. Once you get there, you'll be in a better shape to do all of this other stuff. And the neatest thing about a DA revolver is that you can master that DA trigger pull without spending a single dollar on ammunition. In the course of this video, I couldn't tell you how many times I've pressed the triggers on these guns. But I tell you what, every time I have stuck this gun out at arm's length and done a trigger pull, I've taken a sight picture and made that a really good rep. It's a dry fire machine. Set up dry fire targets in your house. Make sure they're in a safe direction. Make sure the gun's cleared out and all of the other appropriate safety precautions. But let's say I wanted to take this gun back to Africa and hunt a Cape Buffalo with it because there's a screw loose in my head. I'd set up a Cape Buffalo target, like a little mini Cape Buffalo on my wall, and I'd work on friggin' punching bill drills into that Cape Buffalo double action with a 44 Magnum. And you can do that with a DA revolver because it's a dry fire machine. If all you're ever going to do is plink with it, that's fine. No need for mastery. Just have fun. Cock that hammer, pull the trigger, let it rip. Do whatever you want. Do whatever makes you happy. But if you're going to use them for serious work, you should really learn to run that double action trigger. And if you really just want to shoot single action, Taurus makes the Deputy too, and that's just a single action revolver.